13x. You're telling me someone paid 1,300% more for a card with nearly imperceptible differences for the same card in a slightly lower grade? This is madness. We need a data dive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Data Dive powered by Market Movers. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and this week I'm pulling out the old soapbox once again because I think the hobby, as a collective, has officially lost its mind. Like quite literally, I'm resting my feet on a soapbox because the height of these chairs makes me feel like Kevin Hart on one of those Phillies cards, but that's neither here nor there. I want to talk about today something that is not new. It's been weighing on me for over a year, over a week over week, while everyone is all churned up periodically about issues like scammers, shill bidding, fake cards, altered cards, print runs to the moon, and too many slabs, all things which certainly warrant exposure and conversation and things I've covered in the past. The one thing I literally never hear anyone talk about is the complete and utter insane price gap between different grades on cards, especially the massive premium for PSA 10s above other gem mint cards from other grading companies. So today a little expose, a little bit of ranting, and some food for thought, and I want to have you weigh in down on the comments. So we're gonna check all the grade ratios and price comparisons that you could dream of using Market Movers. You can visit marketmoversapp.com and use promo code DIVE when you check out. You'll get 14 days completely free to try it out, and then 20% off for life as long as you're subscribed. It's a pretty good deal. Let's get into the data. Now I have to clarify something very, very important before everybody takes down to the comments to start hating on me. I am not opposed to grading. I am not anti-grading. I am not anti-PSA. I like PSA. I actually like grading. I think authentication and encapsulation aspects of grading are incredibly important, maybe more important than assessing the condition, at least from my perspective. I send cards to grading. I have an order at PSA right now. I like how Nat Turner has been running PSA. I like how they're continuing to use technology to improve their operations. So all important disclaimers there. I'm not hating on grading. With all that being said, I'm going to start out with some data right off the bat, and then we'll zoom out for a bit and go to the bigger picture. So what better card to start with than one of the most, if not the most iconic card, of all time, Michael Jordan's 1986 Fleer rookie card. And I've pulled up some different grades here. And what we see, ladies and gentlemen, is a PSA 10 that recently sold on Heritage Auctions for an astounding $372,000. A PSA 9 sells regularly around $15K. A BGS 9.5 sells regularly around $25 to $27K, the last sale in January for $27,000. An SGC 10, $67,000. And you see a few other grades mentioned here. Now, there's an important caveat. I'm sure some of you already know this. I'm going to scroll down. This card was actually a Mike Baker MBA certified gold sticker. So Mike Baker, who I believe used to work for PSA as one of their lead graders, went off and started his own venture and is basically now grading graded cards. So you can get your card graded and then you can get it graded again by Mike Baker with another sticker on it. And he does different tiers. I think he does the gold, silver, and bronze sticker for different eye appeal levels. So he's sort of giving almost like a black label treatment or a pristine BGS 10 treatment to a PSA 10, which doesn't exist. We know that's the highest they'll give at PSA, and then they go right down to a 9, not a 9.5. So this last sale for $372,000 was an NBA gold. And we're gonna take a look at that card in a second here. The next one that sold was back in January. This one was actually an NBA silver through PWCC, $216,000. And then we get down to the regular PSA 10s, $145,000, $195,000, $189,000 going back to December. That's still a massive premium for a PSA 10 over an SGC 10 and over a BGS 9.5. So I want to look at the eye appeal on these cards and actually kind of assess this, because my going theory is it doesn't make any sense. Why do we care so much about a little corner whiting or a little bit of edge damage or the centering being slightly off more than another card? And in many cases, you can compare two cards, gem mints from different companies, PSA 10 to another gem mint, or PSA 10 even to a 9. And you can say, these don't look any different to me. Or the 9 looks just as good as the 10. Or the 9 looks sometimes better than the 10. That does happen. Does it happen a lot? No, but it does happen. So here's the card that just sold on Heritage. You can see the NBA gold sticker here on the front of the card. And we can just look at this card. Definitely looks good. Looks good. Definitely very well centered. You know, not any major perceptible flaws here. I will say there's a little bit of corner, you know, kind of corner whiting. Like I can zoom in here. It's going to be a little bit blurry, kind of down to this level. It does not look entirely perfect to me, but it does look really good. But what if I go over to the BGS 9.5 from PWCC? Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. I can actually zoom in with a little more precision here. There's a little bit of corner wear, and if I pop out, the corner's got a 9. Everything else got a 9.5. So centering looks just as good on this card. I would actually argue that the back centering actually looks better on the 9.5. So let's look at this one. That's a little bit off, in my opinion. That's a little bit off on the back. This one looks much better. This one's nearly perfectly centered, top to bottom, maybe like 55, 45. Back centering looks really good on both cards. I would even maybe argue that the registration looks a little bit better on the 9.5 on the back. So we can kind of go back and forth between those two. But even if you acknowledge that these corners have this whiting, think about what we're saying here. This card would set you back $27,000. This card would set you back $372,000 for a little bit of corner whiting. How does that make any sense? Why does anybody want to do that? If you're really a collector, if you really want to go after cards, why do you care? I think all of this for higher end cards, like vintage, like these Jordans, like the 52 manuals, and like all this stuff, it's all definitely driven thinking of cards as investment vehicles and trying to create this secondary layer of scarcity because you don't have many different cards. You have, in many cases, 1, maybe 2 rookie cards. And so people are looking, well, how do we differentiate these? How do we make a subset of these cards more valuable than the others? And really, the only thing you can do is assess the condition of the cards. And it's not unique to trading cards. I think that exists in some cases with maybe art, fine art, jewelry, watches. Conditions are assessed on a whole bunch of things. So this isn't unique to the card industry, but the price gaps just don't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe you can make the case that on these older investment pieces, it makes more sense in these big gap multipliers because it's just everybody wants to have the best copy. So that's where this separation comes from. But it really doesn't make sense to me on newer cards. And I want to cover that in a little bit here. Let's jump over and look at what we could have, what types of Michael Jordan cards we could have for $372,000 instead of this Michael Jordan card. And I'm going to jump over here and show you. You could literally have an entire portfolio of high-end Michael Jordan Grail cards. These cards are all going to be very rare in the price range. What did I do? I threw in a price range, $30,000 to $45,000 a piece. And so let's look at these. You got the gold embossed refractor right here first. This is honestly one of my favorite, cards in existence, one of my favorite sets in existence, this 97 Finest set. Absolutely beautiful cards. You got a signed promotion autographs BGS 8 for $41K. You've got the Z-Pete Big Men on Court. I'm going to be honest, I actually like the regular ones, which are less rare, more than these because they don't look as faded and washed out as the Z-Pete, but definitely a rare card. That's in a PSA 10, Pop 8, by the way. You've got the serial numbered, hand numbered 81 of 100 profiles level 3. You've got his 1986 Fleer stickers in a PSA 10, by the way, for $35,000. So here's a card that comes out of the same exact product that's also considered a rookie card. It's his sticker, which goes for a fraction, $35,000 instead of $150K or $372K for the NBA sticker on the front of the card. You got Michael Jordan hardware, Universe Championship hardware in a PSA 10. Beautiful high voltage, 500 volts, numbered to 500, Intimidation Nation. Ultra Stars gold in a BGS 9.5 sold for $34,000. That's a steal, in my opinion. And then the Slam Bams to 100 in a PSA 7. You could literally have all these cards, all of these cards, or just the PSA 10 NBA gold sticker, $372,000 Michael Jordan. But Tyler, you say maybe you like to have really high-end cards, major grails, like the ones nobody can get their hands on. You're a high roller, you've got bigger budget, and you don't want so many cards, you want the really nice ones. Well, here's some other cards you could have. How about a PMG, a red PMG? Also one of the most iconic shots. That, vibrant red foil. The set is iconic. The image is iconic. The player is iconic. You could have a Star Rubies, numbered to 50. You could have the other PMG from Championship, Metal Universe Championship, numbered to 50, the scope pattern. You could scroll down. You can get an Essential Credentials. The list goes on and on and on. You could get one of the highest graded Star Jordans from 1984, all for less. You could actually pick a few of these, 2 or 3 of these, super high-end cards that never come up once a year, once every 3 years, once every 4 years. You could have any of those, or you could just have that one 1986 Fleer NBA Gold. One person's opinion that it's a PSA 10, and another person's opinion putting a sticker on it saying that it's the best of those 10s. Let's jump over and let's take a look at another example, another all-time great, Tom Brady. So here's his Contenders Rookie Ticket Auto in a bunch of different grades. And this PSA 8, you can see, sold for $660,000. Now watch what happens when I throw this BGS 9 on the list. And by the way, the date ranges are going to be a little bit off. I did kind of an all data thing. So you see some of these are from 2022. Some of these are more recent from 2023. The Brady market has gone down. But watch what happens when I put this on here. Those things just get dwarfed. $2.4 million. $2.4 million for the BGS 9. And a year later, a BGS 8.5 sold for $268,000. So you're talking about basically a 10x multiplier for a half of a grade, for maybe literally the difference between one subgrade on a BGS slab. Again, I can't wrap my mind around that, if I'm being totally honest. Bill Russell, more vintage cards. This is the highest sale recorded to date, $660,000 for the Bill Russell 1957 Topps base card in a PSA 8.5. There's 2 of those. And I'm going to click on this and you'll see there are 3 higher. There are 3 higher in a PSA 9. No public sales of those. I don't have any idea who even owns one of those. We don't know if it's one person who owns all 3. There's, to my knowledge, never been a public sale or a privately recorded sale of any of those PSA 9s. And I think it's safe to say that if one of those suddenly emerged and came out, it would pretty safely sell for 7 figures based on these premiums and the fact that one has just never hit the market. There are people who like to have these portfolios of these ultra high-end cards. And so when you look at these older cards, maybe that's sort of the crux of it, right? It's people with much bigger budgets than I have and than many of you probably have, and they want the best of the best. Maybe spending $1 million is a drop in the bucket. Maybe spending $372,000 is a drop in the bucket. Maybe it's a competition, it's a status thing, it's the prestige. I can kind of wrap my head around that because at the end of the day, it's just supply and demand. Nobody's telling them what the card is worth. These are cards that are hitting open auction or being negotiated between buyers and sellers, and they're coming to a price. So it's kind of an is what it is. But in the more modern market, that's where things don't make as much sense to me. So I'm going to start off here with Ronald Acuna Jr. This is his Topps Chrome Sapphire base card. So this is a base card out of a much nicer set, Sapphire. Beautiful set, beautiful product. It's that bat down pose, which obviously has some other appeal behind it, knowing that it's the short print out of the regular flagship series. But this card in a PSA 10, 3.75K. And then in a BGS 10, so people are kind of always ragging on BGS, and they don't really like the BGS 9.5s, which sold for 2.3K. So, about 70% less. Maybe 30% less. I'm mixing up my math. And then you've got the BGS 10, though. Again, a half of a grade higher than the BGS 9.5. That card sells for 6K, and a PSA 9 sells for 1.52K. So less than half of the PSA 10. So what else could we get with our money instead of a PSA 10 copy of this for 3.75K? What else could we get? What other cards of Acuna could we get? Well, for starters, you could get his gold rookie auto right here. On-card auto, gold rookie auto, numbered to 50, true gold, in a PSA 9. You could get that card for 3.5K. So you want a base card out of a nicer set that has 112 copies in existence in that grade, in that condition. Or do you want the PSA 9 on-card auto from Chrome, flagship, also a great image, for $250 less? You could also get, this is a little bit less desirable card for sure, but this is also out of Sapphire. This is the orange to 25 in a PSA 9. It's a landscape card. Not quite as iconic with the auto on it, and they obviously chose different images for the auto. But you could also layer in for $750 to get to that 3750 his just regular PSA Bowman Chrome Prospect Auto first. So you could, it's kind of a pick your poison. This is where, when I'm looking at cards, whether I'm buying for my PC or I'm buying cards that I want to speculate on, I want flexibility and I want really nice cards, generally speaking. And this Sapphire card is really nice. It's stunning. I've seen them in person. It's a stunning card. I'd like to own one, honestly, maybe in a lower grade, definitely not in a PSA 10 with that kind of a premium. Let's look at Nikola Jokic. And what I did was I pulled up 4 PSA 10 cards and 2 raw cards that are significantly more rare. So starting out with this PSA 10, having sold right here on February 4th, we've got his Ruby Wave. So this is Ruby Wave, numbered to 350 back then in 2015. So it is serial numbered in a PSA 10, Pop 60, by the way, in a PSA 10, sold for $2,880. Or you could have his light blue numbered to 199 raw for $1,000 less than that. You could also have his orange to 65, so it's serial numbered to 65 raw, for roughly the same price. You're gonna pay about $150 less for that card a week prior. So this is what I'm kind of getting at. You're looking at these, you're saying, do I care more about the grade of a card and the opinion of a grader over my own opinion, or do I care about having a rare card or a card that looks significantly better? And by the way, this Jokic, the light blue, looks absolutely fantastic. It's like a jersey color match, looks amazing, much better color match in my opinion. Then if you want to, you could get the card and you get it graded yourself. See how much it's gonna cost. Maybe it comes back as a PSA 8 or a 7 or whatever. But again, I don't really care when it comes to the cards that I'm collecting. I'd much rather have cool looking rare cards over something that everybody has and then just pay a huge premium because PSA said they think it's a great condition card. 2 last things, ratios. So I went to our intelligence reports. I threw in a couple sets here, 2021 and 2022 Prism basketball. And over the last 30 days, on average, PSA 10s are outselling SGC 10s by a 1.7x multiplier. So, you know, SGC has a much lower gem rate than PSA, meaning they're harder. It's harder to get an SGC 10 than it is a PSA 10. In many sets, where ultra-modern sets where PSA has a 50 to 60% gem rate, SGC will have a 28 to 35% gem rate, and that's because they have a 9.5. So half of those cards that might get a 10 end up getting a 9.5, whereas for PSA, it's one or the other. And PSA tends to be a little more lenient on centering. So in a way, you could argue that many of these SGC 10s could be superior condition to the PSA 10s, and yet you can get them for a discount. You're gonna have to pay a 1.7x multiplier on the PSA 10 to get the same exact card. So this is all pretty astounding to me, and you could go on and on and on in this. I wanna go a little bit bigger picture, philosophical here. And again, I am not opposed to grading. Let me say that one more time, and I'll probably say it again. I'm not opposed to grading at all. I think it has a place firmly in the hobby. I just don't necessarily believe in the miracle of paying $20 to grade a card and then magically 3 to 5xing the value of it if it gems. In most cases, that's what happens. That to me shouldn't happen at all with ultra-modern cards. Just think about it. Nothing about the card itself has changed. All the grading company did was certify what already existed at the time that it was put into a little card saver and sent in the mail with insurance and signature required. The authenticity of the card is verified and the condition of the card is assessed. And who among us hasn't sent a card for grading, having very thoroughly inspected the card ourselves, only to get it back and see that it got a 9? And you go, what's wrong with this card? I don't see anything wrong with this card. Or an 8, or a 4 even sometimes, seemingly comedically through some error, but with no real recourse to get it fixed. I had somebody come up to me with a card at Culture Collision, and it was graded a PSA 4. And they came up and they were laughing. They said, look at this. Can you look at this? Do you see anything wrong with this card? And neither of us could see a single thing wrong with the card. And then you put that PSA 4, that ultra-modern PSA 4, with no perceptible flaw. Maybe they saw under a blacklight or something, some gouge, some scratch. But if you can't see it with your human eye, why does that take it from a 10 down to a 4? So you put that card up next to a 1933 Gaudi card in a PSA 4, and it's laughable. They look completely different. So when we pay many, many multiples for a PSA 10, what we're saying, essentially, in my opinion, is that we prefer a 10 of an inferior card, of a more common card, like a base card or a basic non-numbered parallel, to a 9 of a superior card, sometimes even with an auto, with a small amount of edge wear or a small centering issue or some scratch that maybe you and I can't even see with our human eyes. When we were kids, for those of us who collected back in the 90s, there was no grading in my circles. We wanted the rare and cool card. Did it have a ding? Okay, it's not ideal, but it's still the rare cool card that I've always wanted. I'm probably gonna trade a boatload of my other less cool cards for that one. I always wanted the more rare and especially the cooler looking card over a common card. I actually get disappointed now when I've been hunting for a specific card for a long time, a rare card that never comes up, and then it surfaces on eBay in a PSA 10 slab because I know it's going to be priced more than I want to pay for it. I know if it sells on auction, it's gonna sell for more than I actually want to pay for that card. That happens to me all the time when I find Drummond cards that I've been after for a long time, and then somebody got it graded and throws it up on eBay in a PSA 10, and a card that raw might sell for $45, they want $200 for because it's in a PSA 10 slab. I have an endless list of cards on my want list, and it's growing daily. Why would I want to limit what I pursue by chasing 10s? Instead, give me an 8, and I can find many that look fine to the naked eye. So, I'll leave it at this. Why is it that we as a hobby have consented to pay these crazy prices for the most minuscule condition differences? Why are we essentially saying that the plastic that the card gets sealed in, along with the numbers subjectively given by a person we've never met before, who maybe only looked at the card for 20 or 30 or 45 seconds at the most, is more valuable than the card itself and more valuable than our own visual inspection of the card? The more I think about it, the more I just really don't get it, and the more I really don't like it. So I want to know, what do you think? Does this miraculous phenomenon of sending a $25 card in the mail, paying $20 for grading, and getting it back worth $100 or more make sense? Do you prefer to have fewer cards in higher grades in your PC, or do you like to have more or rarer cards in lower grades? Let me know down below. And again, I'm not opposed to grading. I'm gonna say it one more time. So do me a huge favor, like this video, make sure to subscribe, share it with a friend. Let's get the conversation going, and tag me on Instagram at Drummond Card Collector. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.